Happy video day, guys. Christina, Brooke here. Today we are going to be doing a makeup your mind. So I'm so excited. I love doing these kind of videos for you guys, and I think you guys really enjoy them. This video though, you see, there was two Make Up Your Minds I wanted to do, but I decided to throw this one ahead because Natasha Denona has finally released the swatches of her The Dream palette. If you guys haven't heard, she's been announcing it. Well, actually, she hasn't announced it. Like Trend Mood kind of like spoiled it, showed it, and everybody had seen what it was going to look like. We talked about it already, and now she finally announced that this is going to be launched, and it looks just like this. And in today's video, what I'm going to do is search through my collection to try to mimic the color story of this palette in order for me to get an idea of whether this is something I want to add to my collection. If you guys don't know, I do have a Buying Everything Natasha Denona for a whole year, so I am going to add it to my collection, but in this video I'm going to kind of like get an idea of what I think it's going to look like. It also gives me a way to be able to kind of like look at the color story and just like analyze it a little bit. Like, am I going to use this? Do I like the direction this is going based off of the colors that she releases in the swatches? So that is what we're doing today. If you are not subscribed, don't forget to go ahead and hit subscribe. If you like these kind of videos, I will have a playlist listed down below where I go through so many different newly released eyeshadow palettes and giving you guys my thoughts. But let's go ahead and let's get into it. So the palette looks just like this. It's gonna be $69 US, which that's an increase, right? Whereas, weren't they like 65 before? So this one's gonna be 69. There is a lot of other stuff that are coming out in this collection. There's a highlighter, there's a lipstick, there's a lip liner, a bunch of different things. I already ordered the entire collection, so spoiler alert, I'm picking it up, but either way, I was gonna pick it up anyway. So I already ordered everything. I pre-ordered it on her website. In order for me to find this in my collection, I did have to pull a lot of palettes. So I did not pick from Retro and Glam, which is what I thought this palette looked like, because I wanted to use other eyeshadow palettes to kind of really get the perfect color story, like exactly what it's gonna look like. So I used a bunch of palettes. So first I used Mcgrath's Divine Rose 1. I also used two minis from Natasha. I used the Xenon and also the Mini Love. I also jumped into the Patrick Ta. This is the Major Dimensions 2. Sorry if I still sound very nasally, but I'm still getting over a sinus infection and it just like doesn't want to give me my voice back. I also jumped into Utopian Dream for one shade. I mixed in the Rose Quartz from Huda Beauty. I also finally used some shades that came out of Celestial Divinity. So that's how I built this eyeshadow palette for me to be able to see what it looks like. And let me show you guys my results. So these are the results. This is what I came up with. This is as close as I can get to this palette. But let's go ahead and let's start doing some swatches so I can give you guys more of an idea. Oh, and actually 13 of these shades are brand new shades. So I know that they were saying, like I read some places that she was curating a palette based off of other palettes. Apparently it's not true. There's 13 new shades and 2 existing shades. And from what I hear, the existing shades are the black, which is her Blackest Black. And then there's also a shade that is from the Star palette that somebody was saying that it's actually from the Star, and it was a renamed shade, and it was the 114 DC. So supposedly that's the T on that. But anyways, let's go ahead and let's get into some swatching. So the first shade, what I ended up doing was I went into Xenon, because Xenon has the Blackest Black. This is what she called this. Now, I don't know if you guys have Xenon, but this is like, it's just such a bad swatcher. And the longer that I have this palette, the less that I can get this black to come out. And before, it actually swatched a lot better, and I feel like little by little I'm really losing swatch. I have a feeling that she reformulated this and that she is probably going to say that the black you're going to get in the new palette is not going to be like the one in the Xenon, because I know that a lot of people didn't like the one in the Xenon. So I'm assuming that the black we're getting is going to be a little bit different than that one. I would be shocked. I'll be honest, I would be shocked if she would release that same one again, because I do think that she's gonna upgrade it or make it a little different, maybe make it similar to her individual that everybody loves, the Blackest Black. So I'm hoping that that's the case. The number of the shadow is actually a different number. It's like in the 400s kind of making you feel like it's going to be a reformulation, but anyways, it's black. So for the next one, what I did was I jumped into Rose Quartz. I grabbed this color called Mantra. Now it's kind of like a purpley toned color. I believe it's gonna look like this, like kind of like in between a black and a purple, kind of like a grayish purple. Just looking off of the swatches, obviously she hasn't even live swatched these yet. Usually I will wait for the live swatches, but since the release came out so quickly, I wanted to get this video done. And based off of her actual swatches on her website, it almost looks like it's going in a purpley, brownish, gray direction. So that's why I picked that color. I think that that's kind of cool. I mean, I wouldn't use these two together, but they are the deepest shades. And as you guys see more and more and more of what the shades look like in this collection, you'll see why I think it works really well. So then on the next one, I actually jumped into Divine Rose, the original, which, believe it or not, I actually think that this palette has a really similar vibe to Divine Rose, the original. I went into this shade right here. So this has this really pretty, shifty, it almost has like a little bit like a purpley feel to it, and I feel like this palette is grabbing into like those purple vibes. Like it just reminds me of like a nice, it reminds me of like a nice muted down, very easy to use palette, and I think the color is going to look similar to the one from Divine Rose 1. Such a pretty tone. I really love that color. So I actually think it would be great to have it in Natasha's formula. Then I stayed in here and I actually went into this shade right here from Divine Rose 1. Now I think that this one inside of the Natasha palette is actually going to be an actual matte, and inside of the Divine Rose it's actually kind of like a satin, but the color looks so similar that I had to pull that shade because I was like, wow, that just reminds me so much of that shade. So that's why I pulled that one. And if you guys can see, it has a really interesting beginning. It looks very cool toned, different from what we've been seeing over and over and over from brands, so I'm appreciative of that. All right, so then I jumped into Celestial Divinity, and I actually went into this shade right here. So this is like a purpley toned metallic shade. I think it's gonna look like this. Looking off of the swatches, this one just gave me a very similar vibe. Like when I swatched it, I was like, wow, that looks so similar. Now, it could go a little bit more in the pinky direction and less purple, but just coming off of what I saw on the palette, it almost looks like this is going to go more in a purple direction, which would make sense because purple is a big shade, well, big tone for fall, and that's a cool color. Then the next one, I went into this shade from Celestial Divinity, which is also a purple, but this is a very predominant shade in the Celestial Divinity. Like I remember every time I used this, I always thought it was like a really cool shade. I have a feeling it's going to look really close to this color. And you can kind of see what I'm building here. Like I'm building this palette. So another palette that I actually think has a very similar vibe is the Patrick Ta Major Dimension 2, so the rosy purpley tone one. So I grabbed into this last shade right here. So this shade actually even reminds me a little bit of like the shade that's inside of Divine Rose. It has like that really cool, like almost like shifty into like a yellowy, but then it also has like an orange in it. So it also reminds me of the color in Divine Rose, and I love this shade with purples. I think it's like so beautiful. So I'm actually pretty happy with that shade. I actually think it's really nice. And actually, while we're at it, this one right here, this is the one that they're saying is actually from the Star palette. So this one and this one would be the repeat shades, just in case you're wondering. At least that's what I am hearing. So for the next one, we're sticking straight into Patrick Ta again, and I'm jumping into this tone right here. So I do feel like there's going to be a few little Patrick Ta moments happening right here. So this is the area that I think they kind of stuck to Patrick Ta. Look at that pretty color. I love that color. I think it just actually is a color that was needed. It's a nice blending shade. It's pretty. I don't know how different it's going to be from this one. Maybe it's going to be a little bit slightly lighter, so that might be the difference. So now for the next one, in Patrick Ta, there's this color right here and this one. So what I did is I mixed them together just because I felt like it looked like this color a lot, but it had a little bit more red, so I just like kind of like dabbed into this one and just tapped it on top just to shift the color just a little bit more. But I think it's gonna look close to that. That's actually really, really pretty. It's also very in color for fall 2022. You're gonna be seeing a lot more red. And this looks like kind of like an in-between red, purple, really pretty color. Kind of, it's really going with the color story here. So then I jumped into Celestial Divinity and I grabbed this orange. So I think that there's gonna be like an orangey tone in here from what I'm seeing. And actually it goes so well. Like I wasn't even like, look at how cool that looks with these purpley shades, a nice little orange. I do think that that's actually really cool. And I like that. I like that. I like the way that that looks. So building this palette, I'm actually kind of liking it. It's reminding me of something I've seen before. Like, I almost feel like, what is it? Like modern Renaissance vibe, right? Like a modern Renaissance. But then I went into Utopian Dream right here. And what I did was I grabbed this shifty shade because there is no shifty shade that I could find that looks similar to this. It's kind of like, goes from a green to a pink. This was a very in shade that people kept making. And I have a feeling that she decided to incorporate one of these two, these nice little green to pink shifty shades. It's a really cool shade. You guys know my love for shifty shades. I actually can't stand them. So I mean, like, it's not like I'm loving the fact that there's a shifty shade in here, but at least if it's gonna be one, at least to make it a cool one, it looks like it could be cool. So then I went into the Mini Love and I jumped into this color right here because I think it's gonna be like a really deep purple. So the first one over here, that's gonna be like a lighter purple, and then I think this is gonna be like a deep purple. I could be off on that one, but I think it is. I mean, just looking at the picture, that's what I'm feeling. I'm feeling like it's gonna be a deep purple just like that, which would make a lot of sense with this color story. So I think it's gonna look like that, right? And then staying inside of the Mini Love, I jumped into this shade right here that's right next door. Really pretty, like inner corner shade. It actually has a little bit of pink in it, so that's why I think it's gonna look like that. Yeah, I have a feeling it's gonna look like that. That's a really cool shade to use with a lot of these colors. Make really good inner corner highlights, inner corner accents. Like, I just think it makes a lot of sense, so I do think it's gonna look like that. Then going into Divine Rose, I jumped into this shade. This one right here is kind of like a real pretty, like, kind of like mauve color, and I think it's gonna look like that. So I went ahead and grabbed it just because, in my opinion, it matches so well with this color story. So when I was looking at the swatch, I was like, it has to be like that, like a mauvish gray. It would just make a lot of sense for it to look similar to that. And then finally, I think that she does this sometimes. I've been noticing, like, in each palette, I picked 2 colors from each palette. So then I grabbed into this brown right here, and I have a feeling it's gonna look very similar to this brown, which is a nice brown, a little bit of warmth, but a little cool, but a little bit of warmth actually. I think the brown is gonna have more warmth. Like, it's not like that real cool tone brown that you would expect in a palette like this. I think she added a little bit more warmth to it. It makes it a little bit different, so it's adding different looks that you can go, and you can go more in a warm direction. At least that's what I see from the swatches. So that is it. This is what I think it's going to look like. That is the entire color story. Just looking at this though, guys, okay, so I thought that this is gonna be like a glam retro mix. I think that the promotional pictures and the picture of the actual palette look a little different from the actual swatches that they released. So when I was looking at the swatches, in my opinion, now it looks more purpley. It has a little bit more orange in it. It still has a little bit of like a retro vibe to it. I'm not gonna lie, from what I'm seeing. Obviously, I wasn't gonna pull from here because it's gonna be like different, but I wanted to grab similar colors. But I do think it's gonna have more of like a little bit of a retro, but with more purples incorporated, and maybe less glam than I thought. It's gonna be more retro with a little bit of purple. It's actually reminding me of modern Renaissance, you know, kind of vibe, right? Don't we see that? Kind of like that type of vibe. It also has a really similar vibe to the new Patrick Ta palette, but obviously it doesn't have like those browns, but it has like that kind of vibe. And of course, I said this a few times, but I do really think that it has a similarity to Divine Rose, the first one. So that's kind of like in the direction I think it's going, but it's adding a little bit more purples to it. Looking at it though, I can see how she can name this like her perfect palette, because this is going to be one of those palettes from what I'm seeing right now. I mean, obviously these shades are going to be a little bit off because I don't know exactly what they're going to look like, but just looking at the idea of this color story, I could see this being a very easy go-to palette. The only thing that I personally notice here is that you are going to be sticking into more of like the mauve-y, not pink, but like more of like the mauve tone eyes, which I saw a lot when I would do Divine Rose 1 looks. But I will say my Divine Rose 1 looks I always loved. So I'm very happy that it's not going in like the shocking pink direction or in the direction that all your eye looks are going to look pink. That would have been like, ugh, how is this a dream palette, you know? But this is doing a really pretty idea. Like I see a pretty idea here more than I saw originally. Originally I was more like, not sure about this. I'm liking it more. Do I think that this is the color story that I would have wanted to release right now? I still don't think so. I still think that that greenish olive eyeshadow palette with a little bit of purples would have been ideal. However, that being said, these purpley orangey colors could go really well with something that's a little bit mauve and green. So I'm wondering if the holiday palette is going to work well with this. That is what I'm thinking, because I have a feeling we're gonna see that mossy green retro glam part 2 for holiday. I mean, it has to be. So I'm okay with this. I think it actually could be actually really pretty. It may not be as similar as I was thinking to some of her other palettes. It might actually be different. I don't know if you're going to think that this is a very different color story for your collection though. You know, you may have something really similar. You actually might, you know? So I'm excited for this. I'm going to make up my mind and say I'm picking it up. I already bought it anyways, but even if I didn't buy it, I probably would have gotten it. So yeah, I'm a little bit more excited now. My mind is shifting into more of like, maybe this could be a moment, a very pretty moment, and I'm excited. I want to know from you guys right now, what palette do you think it looks similar to? Are you excited for this? Are you still kind of bored? I get it. It's not like super different. It's not like something that we're not used to seeing. I get it. But yeah, leave me your comments down below. Anyways, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.